Hi everyone, it is Thursday and we are going live from the Hive today. My name is Ashley.
Elise here.
And today we are going to be extracting honey.
Yes.
And we're also going to be taking a look at moisture levels.
Moisture level in honey using a hydrometer in the field.
Yeah, but before we get started, I'll give you a quick update on what to look forward to this month. We have a free mini course currently ongoing from now until the end of September, all about harvesting honey. 'Tis the season, so if you're looking for advice or looking for how to harvest honey, you can find that on our website. We also have our Master Academy happening this month with Melanie Kirby.
Yeah.
So that is a good one. Tune in, it'll be great. And Elise will be speaking at our Better Beekeeping Business webinar this month, all about bee education.
Bee education, get into the business of bee education, which I highly recommend, clearly.
So,
it's something I enjoy doing.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
I'll just flip this
around.
camera.
There we go. Is it on me? Okay, cool. So this is like a small little apiary I have at my parents' place, which is also has my extraction building in it. So I'm just going to quickly, we're going to go into 2 colonies here. I've pulled honey off of these hives already and put wet supers, which is combs that have been extracted, back onto the hives. And we're just going to have a peek and see, I did this about 2.5 weeks ago, if they've drawn anything out as far as honey stores, and then see also what that moisture content of those honey stores are. Like, are they good enough to harvest? So normally when I'm harvesting honey from a colony, I am inspecting from the bottom up, but today we're not harvesting and we're just going to talk about moisture content today. So we're going to go into the upper super, because here's where we're going to have our nectar stores above the brood nest below. And we want to see the moisture content, because if we harvest honey that has too much water in it, what ends up happening is the water and sugar and yeast from the honey and the environment creates mead, alcohol. So you don't want fermentation in your jars. So it's very important that you aim for anywhere from a 14 to 21% moisture content. Kind of the Alberta average is around below 18%. And the bees usually tell you when you've reached that moisture content by capping the honey. But as you can see in this frame, this honey is not capped. Again, I put these boxes on wet 2 weeks ago, I guess now. Yeah, and so we want to check and see, could I harvest this? Like, is it okay for me to harvest this right now? Or do I need to wait for the bees to use the heat of the colony to evaporate the moisture off? So this is a refractometer. What it does is it will calibrate the moisture content of the liquid put into this kind of lens area. So what I'm going to do here with this frame is I'm going to jab my finger in. You can see the liquid content looks pretty high. I'm going to rub it on this little screen here. I'm going to put the flap closed. Now I'm just going to eat this. Ooh, the lens cap came off. Thank you, Ashley. So what we're looking for, if you want to look in here, so we're going to aim it kind of toward the sun, is what we're looking for is if you can see a blue line meeting a white line and then there's a number there. We're looking for a moisture content that is below, I like 18% or less. Can you see it, Ashley?
It's a little bit tricky, but you can see the difference between the blue and the white line. There we go.
Perfect. So what we're looking for is to see the variability. So when I look in here, we are between 18 and 17%, kind of right in that middle. So even though that frame is fully open and it isn't capped, I could harvest this and not worry about fermentation in my colony. So I just wanted to point that out, because with it being such a dry season and the nectar, because it was a drought season, there are a lot of people waiting to harvest honey, especially if you're in canola country, where if you wait too long, your canola honey will crystallize because it's super high in glucose. You really don't want to wait that long, because you don't want it to crystallize inside the comb. So here we go. This whole frame is uncapped, but it's technically below 18% moisture content. So I could extract this today and have no issues. Now we're going to go into a hive over there behind Ashley, and you'll see too here, actually, I want to show a really good sign of fall is this propolis production. The bees really start harvesting a lot of propolis from the trees in the area to combat fungal infection and to seal up any cracks in the colony before the winter snow comes. So let's go into this hive here. Now all of this honey, what we peeked in earlier, all of this honey is capped. So I'm just gonna professionally clean this. I'm sure there's more appropriate ways to clean it, but this is how I'm choosing to do it in this moment. Let me get this mic on. So let's have a look in on this colony and have a peek and see what the moisture content would look like in a fully capped frame of honey. Give them a little puffy puff. Let's pull out of the honey super. So I have a queen on here, so I know that all above here there's not any queens or any queens or brood. Here's a nice fully capped frame of honey. So let's have a peek here. Now the key to using a refractometer is you kind of point it at the sun, because the sun works as that contrast. Oops. So let's have a peek here. If you're able to see, does that work?
This one's a little bit trickier.
This one's trickier. It's not working out so well, hey? I can't see if you guys can see. Well, I can tell you that this one is 15% moisture content. So it's it's fairly different, much drier than the other. But both are good, especially if I'm extracting both of them at the same time. Like if I pull the honey off of all these hives and put them to the extractor, that statistical average is probably going to push it around 15 to 16.5% moisture content, which is the average moisture content of most of the honey that I harvest in the end of the season anyways. So having one of these is great. They're about $100. You can buy them from your local beekeeping supply store, but you can also get them online, of course. You can get anything online these days. But I strongly recommend having one in hand because it can save you a lot of time versus waiting until you expect your colony is going to be capping the honey, because with a lack of flow, what can happen is wax production can be limited, so the bees may not cap the honey even though it is ready to be capped. It's very extraneous. So any questions about that?
Nothing so far, but if you have any questions throughout this live, feel free to just drop them in the comments and I'll ask Eliese.
Yeah, please do. So let's go into the extracting room. Okay, welcome to the honey extracting room. It's really noisy here because I have some machinery that's on. I'm just going to show you around. So here's where I set up all my pallets. The frames that come in from the honey truck when I bring in the honey to be extracted. And this here is my the capping spinner. So when I'm working with my uncapping stuff, I put everything in the capping spinner. So this is the place where I'm going to be taking a frame like this. Okay. Taking a frame like this and uncapping it. So I am going to be putting all of this cappings wax that I pull off of this frame into this spinning, basically like a dryer. Now the nice thing about this little dryer is it spins, and I leave it on for days. I don't ever really turn it off. And as it uncaps, it pours honey out of the spun honey cappings and into this bucket. And then this bucket of honey is going to go into my filtering tank. So it allows for me to make sure that by the end of the extracting season, all the honey that is drawn out from the cappings happen so that I can then have really nice dry, powdery dry cappings to use for selling, for making stuff, whatever. Sometimes I have to rinse the cappings if they're a little bit sticky, and I can use that to go back into my bee feed, add it to my syrup tank, or I could even rinse off the cappings and make mead out of it. So as I'm capping, as you can see, I'm using an uncapping fork here. You can use an uncapping knife. There's lots of different options. Once I'm done uncapping the frames, I put them into my my uncapping tank here, which is basically what I have is wash-up tanks. They're really cheap. You can get stainless steel ones. They cost anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. These were $90 a piece, and they're on legs and they're waist height, so I like them. I can clean them. And then the honey that drips them, there's a plug in here. So I can pull the plug, put it into a bucket, and then any of the honey that drips ends up, again, in the filtering tank. So now here's my 38 frame radial extractor. It's like a 1971 Jones extractor. I love it because it's entirely made from a small motor, easy to maintain, and then a belt system. So when I want to increase the radial speed of my extractor, it's very simple. I'm just going to change this and push it closer to the epicenter. So I'm going to move it into the middle a little bit more, which increases this, of course, the diameter of the circle makes it spin faster. So now we're picking up speed. What's really important when you're running a radial extractor, especially the bigger the extractor, is that you are not ever turning it up full blast right away. You always are increasing the speed in gradients. Not only can you cause your extractor to walk or damage its center of balance, but actually you can start to tear and break frames if they're off center, off balance. They're quite heavy. So I always spin it for 5 minutes at a low speed, and then have alarms going off for 5 minutes, for 25 minutes, increasing its speeds, where at the end of the extraction, I have the center of the circle pretty tight. But if I put it too tight together, you can see here, it's starting to rock. And I don't want that, so I'm gonna slow it down a little bit. So this can be bolted to the ground. I did have it bolted to the ground. But it chose to rip out of its bolting, so I have to figure out a better system, but in the meantime, it's pretty solid. Okay, so now when the honey's extracting, it's coming out into this 5-gallon pail, and it's got wax and all kinds of debris. There's even wasps in there because they've been robbing the honey house. So I'll pick up that pail and I toss it into my filtering body honey tank. Now, I love this thing. And if you can find something like it or fabricate something like it, I highly recommend it. So what we have here is 4 filters inside a bottling tank. So we have a less fine filter to a much more fine filter. If you have a look inside, can you see inside there? You can see that the screen all the way through. And then on the outside, I have a little heating jacket on, a little belt that helps keep the metal warm. So it's not hot enough to cause any denaturing or pasteurization of the honey, but it definitely works to make sure that it keeps the honey viscous and we don't have crystallization causing problems with the screening. Then in front of it, I have my super fancy scale set up. So I have a digital scale. So I've got my digital scale here, so I'll zero it here, and these are 1 kilogram jars, and then I just bottle straight from the filtering tank into the jars, and it creates a really beautiful product without too much management, without too much. Now I used to have a gravity clarifying tank that I would set up, but the volume of honey coming out of my 38 frame extractor overwhelmed it, so I need to get a bigger size, but this works really well for the kind of switching things up when it comes to going straight from the extractor into the jar. So that's my simplistic small honey house setup. It allows for me to extract 3.5 boxes every time I run that extractor, 25 minutes a time. So I can extract a fair amount of honey a day. This holds probably about 25 gallons. And so I have to be bottling while I'm extracting. So I have a nice circuit going. So it is a one-person kind of setup for me here, which is really nice because it allows for me to kind of work really leisurely and have an eye on everything without anything overflowing. If you have any questions, please comment below and let me know if you have any ideas on how you can make it more efficient, or anything that you see that you think could be copied, made cheaper, or amplified in any sort of way. I'd really like to hear your feedback.